Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Rain was pouring down on the streets of New York, turning the asphalt into a shimmering mirror of neon lights. The icy wind whistled between the buildings, rattling trash cans and tearing scraps of cardboard from the homeless. In a dark alley in Brooklyn, two small figures huddled under a damp piece of cardboard. 10-year-old twins Emily and Madison Carter shivered in their threadbare coats, clutching their little dog, Rusty, who was also trembling with cold and hunger. Since their mother had been hospitalized with a serious and incurable illness, they had been wandering the streets, surviving on leftovers thrown out by restaurants and a few coins gleaned from parks. Poverty had taught them to be courageous, resourceful, and supportive of one another, but despair was a constant companion. Every night, they dreaded the wind, the rain, and the unknown that could strike at any moment. A few miles away, Alexander Whitman, a billionaire famous for his colossal fortune and tech empire, was leaving his penthouse with his chauffeur for a charity gala. In his bespoke coat and gleaming shoes, he walked with the confidence of someone who thought he controlled the world. But tonight, fate had a lesson in store that no amount of wealth could buy. As Alexander pulled out of an intersection, a car suddenly appeared. The braking was brutal, the screech of tires echoed through the night, and a violent impact sent the businessman's car sprawling onto the shoulder. Alexander was thrown against the steering wheel, gasping for air. The world around him became a blur of light and pain. In the alley, Emily and Madison, alerted by the noise, rushed out, soaked in the rain. They saw the wrecked car and Alexander's lifeless body. Without thinking, the twins hurried over, their small hands trembling but resolute. They felt his faint pulse and exchanged a look filled with worry and determination. "Madison, he's not breathing anymore," Emily whispered, her voice choked with fear. They knelt beside him, praying and murmuring words of encouragement, as the wind and rain seemed to sweep everything around them. And suddenly, as if their prayers had been heard, Alexander's breathing became heavier, his chest heaved, and his eyes half opened. Who are you?" he stammered, still confused. Emily and Madison had no idea they had just triggered the first miracle of their lives. They were just two homeless girls, but tonight, their courage and pure hearts would transform the life of a powerful man and change the course of their own destinies. Their story had just begun. The ambulance siren wailed through the night, echoing off the wet buildings. The rain fell even harder, making the streets slippery and treacherous. Emily and Madison remained kneeling beside Alexander Whitman, soaked to the bone, but determined not to let him die. "Madison, help me hold him, he's so weak," said Emily, her voice trembling but firm. Madison nodded and, despite her shivers, supported Alexander's back. Rusty, the little dog, rubbed against them, as if to share their warmth. The situation seemed hopeless. Alexander was breathing in gasps, and his eyes remained half-closed. Passers-by had gathered, some wanting to call for help, others simply watching. But Emily and Madison gently pushed them away. "Let us do it. We have to help him." There was no medical knowledge, no special training, just the instinct of two little girls who knew what life and death were. They took each other's hands, and murmuring prayers, they focused all their energy on the billionaire's lifeless body. Then, a strange phenomenon occurred. Alexander took a deep breath, his chest rising and falling slowly. His trembling fingers gripped Emily's sleeve. The stunned passers-by recoiled. No one would have bet on the man surviving in these circumstances. "Who are you?" asked Alexander, his voice weak, still bloody and trembling. We're Emily and Madison," replied the older girl, her voice almost a whisper. "You have to stay with us." Alexander tried to smile, but the pain was too intense. Yet, something within him shifted in that instant. He felt a strange warmth, an inexplicable connection with these two little girls he didn't know. He understood that his survival wasn't due to chance, something, or someone, was watching over him. The paramedics finally arrived, sliding across the wet floor to reach the victim. Emily and Madison stepped back, their clothes dripping, their eyes shining with an eerie light. One of the paramedics shook his head in amazement. How did those girls manage to keep him breathing? He murmured, more to himself than to anyone else. Alexander was loaded onto the stretcher, but he couldn't help but look at the binoculars one last time. Deep down, he felt that this wasn't just a rescue, it was the beginning of a bond that would change his life, and theirs, forever. As the ambulance drove away in the pouring rain, Emily and Madison remained silent, aware that they had just performed a miracle. But they didn't yet know that this was only the beginning. Alexander Whitman awoke in a luxurious hospital room, surrounded by medical equipment and doctors whispering amongst themselves. His clothes were stained with blood, his hands trembled, and his entire body reminded him of the violence of the accident. For the first time in his life, the billionaire, accustomed to controlling everything, felt vulnerable and powerless. "You were very lucky, Mr. Whitman," said Dr. Reynolds, his expression serious. "If those few minutes had been different, you wouldn't have survived." Alexander looked away, but his mind was elsewhere. He could still see Emily and Madison's eyes, that fierce determination and courage that seemed so out of place given their age and circumstances. He couldn't understand how two little homeless girls could have influenced his survival. Meanwhile, in Brooklyn, Emily and Madison returned to their damp cardboard box under a bridge. Their life of misery resumed its course, with cold, hunger, and fear as constant companions. They hadn't sought recognition or reward, their sole motivation had been to save another human being. But that night, something inside them had changed. They had felt that they could accomplish the impossible, and this certainty filled them with a new strength. The next day, the media seized upon the story: a billionaire, critically injured, miraculously survived an accident. Many called it a miracle, but no one knew that this miracle came from two little homeless girls. Alexander, for his part, could not forget this invisible bond that would now connect him to Emily and Madison. "I have to find them," he murmured to his personal assistant, Marcus. "Who are these girls? Where are they?" Marcus shook his head. "Sir, they're probably in the Brooklyn area. But it's not certain, and you know how complicated things can get." Alexander, however, did not back down. This time, he was not acting for his empire or his fortune. He wanted to understand, to give thanks, and above all, to offer something he had never given before: hope. Meanwhile, Emily and Madison continued their routine, unaware that their courage had just created a connection that would change their lives forever. Their dirty hands, torn clothes, and tired eyes suggested nothing extraordinary, and yet, they were at the heart of a miracle that even Alexander Whitman could never have imagined. And this miracle would go far beyond a simple accident. 3 days after being discharged from the hospital, Alexander Whitman sat in his office, but his mind wasn't on business or contracts. He kept seeing Emily and Madison's faces. He had asked Marcus to find the two little girls, determined to talk to them, thank them, and understand how they had saved his life. Marcus returned with news. "Sir, they still live in the Brooklyn neighborhood. But you have to be careful. They are homeless children. They have been through difficult things. You can't just offer them money." Alexander nodded. He knew he didn't just want to buy their gratitude. He wanted to offer them a real chance, a life he himself had never been able to appreciate, even with all his wealth. So he took a taxi and drove to the poor neighborhood where the twins lived. When he first saw them, he was struck by their gaze. Emily, the older sister, scrutinized him with immediate suspicion, while Madison, gentler, stood behind her sister, her little dog Rusty snuggled against her. The billionaire felt a lump form in his throat. "Hello, my name is Alexander Whitman," he said softly, extending his hand. I want to talk to you." Emily instinctively stepped back, her hand on Madison's chest. "Why are you talking to us? We don't know you." "Because you saved my life," Alexander replied, his voice sincere and trembling. "The two of you, you did something incredible, and I want to help you." The twins exchanged a hesitant glance. They had always learned to distrust wealthy adults, often bearers of broken promises. But there was something in Alexander's eyes, a humanity they had never seen in this world of concrete and misery. "We don't want money," Emily said. "We just want to survive." Alexander nodded, understanding perfectly. He wasn't just offering money, but a home, an education, protection. For the first time, he realized that his fortune had the power to change lives, not just fill coffers. "Then I don't want to buy you," he said. "I just want to give you a chance. A chance to never have to sleep in the rain again, to never be afraid every night." Madison's eyes welled up with tears. For the first time in a long time, they felt that a better future was possible. They didn't yet know that this encounter would transform their lives forever, and that their courage and kindness would, in turn, change the heart of a billionaire. Alexander felt that a part of himself, which he thought had been lost in money and power, was being reborn that day. The twins, for their part, understood that a miracle had touched their lives, far beyond the accident. And that was just the beginning. A few months later, Emily and Madison's lives had completely changed. Alexander Whitman had kept his promise. He had found them a comfortable apartment, enrolled them in a prestigious school, and surrounded them with attentive support. But more importantly, he had given them something no amount of wealth could buy: security and love. The twins, once shivering in the rain and cold, now laughed as they walked through the corridors of their new school. Rusty, their faithful little dog, slept at their feet every night, and the fear that had haunted them for years now seemed like a distant memory. For Alexander, the change had been even more profound. The billionaire, once obsessed with his business and his reputation, had learned to see the world differently. The twins had reminded him that true power resided in the heart, not in money. Every gesture, every smile from Emily and Madison had transformed him, making him more human, more humble. But the real miracle happened one summer evening when the twins organized a small party to celebrate their new life. Alexander watched them laugh, sing, and play, and realized that the greatest gift they had given him was not surviving the accident, but allowing him to be reborn emotionally. "You know, you saved more than a life," he confided to them, his eyes shining. "You saved me, my heart." Emily and Madison threw themselves into his arms, and Alexander felt that no wealth in the world could equal this moment. Years of loneliness, ego, and coldness had been swept away by the simplicity and purity of two little girls who had believed in a miracle. A few months later, Alexander launched a support program for homeless children, in tribute to Emily and Madison. He wanted others to be able to find a home, an education, and a future full of hope, just like them. Thus, the miracle was not merely the survival of a billionaire after an accident. The true miracle lay in the transformation of lives. Two homeless girls had found a family and a future, and a powerful man had rediscovered his humanity thanks to them. And in the hearts of Emily, Madison, and Alexander, a bright truth had dawned: sometimes, the smallest acts of courage and kindness can accomplish the most extraordinary miracles.